Today, we're diving into a really fascinating topic, the intersection of mental health and artificial intelligence. We're going to explore how these complex algorithms are already being used to diagnose and even treat us, and what that really means for the future of healthcare. And it all kind of boils down to this one huge question. Can a machine actually understand the human mind? I know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but as we're about to see, the latest research is giving us some very real and pretty surprising answers.
And the need for these answers, well, it's more urgent than ever. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw this massive spike in demand for mental health services. In fact, reported anxiety and depression went up by a staggering 25% globally. This, of course, created a huge challenge for healthcare systems, and it's a big reason why researchers are turning to technology for new solutions.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll get clear on what AI even is in this context. Then, we'll look at its three main jobs, how it helps diagnose conditions, monitor treatments, and even deliver support. And finally, we'll look at what's next, the good and the tricky.
All right, first things first. When we say AI, what are we really talking about? Let's get a nice, clear definition on the table.
At its heart, artificial intelligence is really about creating systems that can look at data, learn from that data, and then use what they've learned to hit specific goals. You should think of it less like a thinking, feeling machine and more like an incredibly powerful tool for finding patterns. Patterns that could, say, signal a mental health crisis way before we'd normally see it.
You know, a good way to think about these terms is like a set of nested dolls. AI is the biggest doll. That's the overall idea. Inside that, you've got machine learning, which is the engine that uses stats to learn from data. And then inside that, you have deep learning, which is a super specialized engine using things called neural networks for really complex jobs, like understanding all the little nuances in human speech.
Okay, so we've got these powerful tools. But in a field as important as mental health, how do we separate what's real from what's just hype? Well, the insights we're talking about today come from a massive systematic review of scientific studies, which is basically a process designed to find the best, most reliable evidence out there.
What you're looking at here is called a PRISMA flowchart, and it shows the really tough filtering process the researchers used. They started with this huge pool of studies and just kept narrowing it down step by step to find only the highest quality, most relevant research.
And just look at the numbers here, it's pretty telling. The search started with 842 potential studies, but after this really strict screening for quality and relevance, only 85 made the final cut. That tells you that what we're about to see is based on the absolute best evidence available.
All right, now that we have that foundation of solid research, let's jump into the first major application, using AI to help diagnose mental health conditions sometimes much earlier than we ever could before.
So, how on earth can an algorithm help spot something as complicated as depression or schizophrenia? Well, the answer is in its ability to see tiny patterns in data that a human being might just miss.
And the results are honestly pretty remarkable. For depression, AI can analyze the complex electrical signals in the brain from an EEG and find subtle signatures of the condition. For schizophrenia, it looks at MRI scans and learns to spot distinct structural patterns in the brain. And maybe the most powerful example, by analyzing things like word choice and tone, an AI could identify suicidal ideation from just text with almost 97% accuracy. Wow!
And this quote from one of the key studies just sums it up perfectly. It's not just finding abstract patterns. Machine learning is accurately telling the difference between teenagers who are suicidal and those who are not. That's a task with real life or death stakes.
Okay, so AI can help with diagnosis, but what happens after that? That brings us to our second application, using AI to monitor a patient's progress and even predict how they might respond to a certain treatment. You know, this is one of the biggest hurdles in mental health care. A treatment that's a miracle for one person might do nothing for someone else. So can AI give us a heads up about what's actually going to be effective? The research suggests, yeah, it can. AI models are getting good at predicting how patients will respond to specific antidepressants, forecasting if therapies like CBT will be effective, and even figuring out who's most likely to benefit from something like a meditation app. And maybe the most futuristic example is using the data your smartphone already collects, like your step count and location, to help predict suicide risk. So, AI can help diagnose and monitor, but can it actually be part of the treatment itself? That leads us to our third area, using AI to deliver direct mental health interventions and provide support at a scale that was just never possible before.
And the big question here is, how does an algorithm go from just being an analyst's tool to being an active part of someone's care? How can it actually provide support in a way that's meaningful?
Well, one of the main tools for this is the AI chatbot. Now, these are not meant to replace human therapists. That's really important. Instead, they offer this scalable 24/7 first line of support. They can help bridge that huge gap in mental health resources we talked about by giving people an immediate, totally non-judgmental space to talk and practice proven techniques.
We've seen some incredible potential here. But, like with any powerful new technology, there are some pretty big hurdles to clear. So let's look at the road ahead and balance all that promise with the very real challenges.
This really lays out the two sides of the coin. On one side, you have this amazing promise: incredible accuracy, support that can scale to millions, early detection, and personalized treatment. But on the other side, you have the major hurdles we have to solve right now: making sure the data isn't biased, making the AI's thinking understandable to doctors, and of course, making absolutely sure that patient data is kept safe and secure.
So after weighing all this potential against the challenges, what's the path forward? Well, the research points to two absolutely critical next steps.
It seems future success really hinges on two main things. First, we have to build better, more diverse data sets to train these models on so they work for everyone, not just one small group. And second, we have to make the AI models themselves more transparent, more explainable, so that a clinician can understand why the AI is making a certain recommendation before they trust it with a patient's care.
Which leaves us with this final, and I think most important question. The technology is here. Its potential it's undeniable. But the real work, it's just getting started. This isn't just about building smarter algorithms. It's about building them with wisdom, with ethics, and with a deep understanding of what it means to be human. So how do we build an AI that truly helps us heal?